It's Locked On NBA Game Night. I'm Wes Goldberg here with Swipa. Coming up, Julius Randle stuns the Suns and the Thunder make the Mavericks sweat and the Cavs remain unbeaten. All of that and more on a Sunday night edition of Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
Welcome to Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night in 30 minutes. Wes Goldberg here with Swipa. However you might be tuning in on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, thanks so much for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Got a jam-packed show for you today, including a dramatic finish to the Thunder Mavericks game and an unlikely hero stepping up to help the Cavs remain undefeated. But let's start, Swipa, in Minnesota, where Julius Randle won it at the buzzer. Here's Ben Beacon from Locked On Wolves with more.
The Timberwolves pulled out a comeback win over the Phoenix Suns on a buzzer beater from Julius Randle. I'm Ben Beacon, host of the Locked On Wolves podcast. And for the second straight game, the Wolves gave up a massive scoring performance to an opposing star guard. De'Aaron Fox had 60 in the overtime win for the Wolves. On Friday, Devin Booker had 44 in this game, and it took until the second half before the Wolves finally started putting two on the ball on the perimeter with Devin Booker and forcing the ball out of his hands, making somebody else beat them. Eventually, it worked to an extent. Phoenix was doing exactly that to Anthony Edwards for most of the game. It took Ant only had 4 points at halftime. He had a big third quarter and was kind of going toe-to-toe with Devin Booker for a while, finished with 24. But it was Julius Randle that was the beneficiary of Phoenix trying to force the ball out of Ant's hands. Randle had 35 points on 20 shots in this game, knocked down 5 threes, had 7 assists, and the game winner over former Timberwolves Josh Okogie. A fantastic performance for Randle. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Wolves for all things Timberwolves.
Just a fantastic finish, a fun game overall, Swipa. What stood out to you in this one?
I think that if, obviously the Suns are missing Kevin Durant, and so that makes a big difference in their closing, but their 4 quarters last year were horrible. Their 4th quarter this year have been horrible. They were up double digits at one point in time in this 4th quarter and just cannot seem to hold on to the lead. Look, Dante DiVincenzo has added so much to this team, and even there was an air ball that he had that Rudy Gobert ended up putting back in, but even just his ability to move off ball, they haven't had a movement shooter like that, I think, on that roster, and that adds a lot to what they're trying to do. But also this, look, the Wolves, my biggest concern with them is that their defense is nowhere near what it was last year, and that has been the biggest storyline for that team so far. But we get to the end of the game. Look, I understand that refereeing is a very difficult job, and I understand there's a lot of complexities to it. Ant Edwards hit just a great off the backboard shot down the stretch. You get a wide open three from Grayson Allen that he ends up hitting off of a corner. But then you get Julius Randle gets the ball, 2 seconds left, and the refereeing was just up and down all game as it was. And there were some tic-tac fouls that were getting called on the Suns on the other end. And then you get Julius Randle, which looks like a clear push-off. Now, did Josh Okogie, did he sell it? Yes, but that's what you're supposed to do. But maybe, Wes, it's just they just didn't want to end the game on a whistle in that situation. Very similar to Jason Tatum with a clear travel on the 3 that he hit to get the win in that game. I just think that officiating just makes such a big difference over the course of a game, and then it means nothing. But shout out Julius Randle. 35 points on that shot volume is a big deal, especially on a night that Anthony Edwards wasn't there in the first half.
Yes.
Now, he played well down the stretch of the second half, really well. Julius Randle dominated his minutes tonight. I think the Wolves were a plus 16 when he was on the court. Mike Conley also had a very impactful game, even though the numbers didn't say it. The Wolves have a nice formula, but what's the new story for me is, Wes, that they're suddenly an offensive team more so than a defensive team out of nowhere.
I agree with everything you just said, but for the most part. But the reason why you acquire, so they make the big Karl-Anthony Towns trade. The big reason why they did it, we all know, it's the cost-effective move. They had to sacrifice somebody. They sacrificed Cat, but in getting Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo, I thought a lot of people were very high on the DiVincenzo part of the deal for good reason, right? Volume 3-point shooter, very impactful player for the Knicks last year. Had not been very good for the Timberwolves from the start of this season. Kind of had his breakout game, 5 of 10 from 3-point range. He started the year in a little bit of a shooting slump, so that was the big storyline for the first half for me for the Timberwolves. But then, like you said, Julius Randle really stepping up when it was kind of an up and down, or really it was just sort of a down and then up game from Anthony Edwards. This is why I always thought Julius Randle was maybe an underrated part of that trade package. Julius Randle is a far from perfect player. Nobody is saying he is. But you know what he is? The dude can get you a bucket. And sometimes it's not the most efficient bucket, and sometimes it's not the prettiest bucket. But I thought for so much of last year, especially in the Western Conference Finals, when Anthony Edwards just couldn't score, when the Dallas really keyed in on him, nobody else really had the ability to just create their own shot for themselves or for another person. Mike Conley can't do that at this stage of his career. Nobody else on that roster last year could really do it. Not even Karl Anthony Towns. That's not really his thing. Julius Randle, that's his thing. He will create a bucket. Again, not always the prettiest, but he can make something happen. And then you add Dante DiVincenzo to the mix. You add Rob Dillingham, who played quite a bit in the first half and then wasn't really a factor later on in this game. Then you have something. But you're exactly right. Like that, there's a bunch of like kind of just hoopers on this team now, like on this squad, and they're more offensively leaning. I think the bet, if you're Minnesota, is look, push comes to shove in the playoffs. We still think we can tap into that defense. Maybe we're not quite as good as we once were, but I think we maybe in like when it's knuckle crunch time, we could be like a top 5-ish type of defense when it really matters, and we'll see whether or not that happens. But let's go ahead and move on to our next game here, Swiper. We're going to go to Dallas where the Mavericks beat the Thunder, but not without some drama in the end. All right, so follow me here. The Mavericks lead by 10 with 2 minutes and 14 seconds left.
Yep.
This thing looks over. But the Thunder do what the Thunder do. They come back, make it a one-possession game after SGA makes a three that forces it or turns it into a one-possession game. Then forced and won a jump ball against Kyrie Irving. You mentioned some questionable officiating this weekend, Swipe. I think he got fouled on that last play, but SGA got away with it, forces the jump ball. He then gets fouled right away. He intentionally makes the first free throw, intentionally misses the second one. Lou Dort comes up with it, and what did you think was going to happen after Lou Dort comes up with that loose ball?
Well, here's the thing. Like, when you're playing versus this Thunder team, they don't stay dead. Like, very much. And again, very, very reminiscent. I mean this in all ways. Very reminiscent of the Miami Heat. They do not stay dead. If you're up double digits, you better finish the game. And that's the way the Thunder play. And I'm glad
I'm not the only one who thought that. You made me feel better there.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the way they're coached. Like, it's just there's no wasted possession. Even if we're not playing well, we want to win the possessions. And that's exactly what they do. Again, up 10. And then I'm putting you in a situation now where you're like, 2 points on the line, ability to tie the game up. Lou Dort gets the ball, throws it up. That's a big deal for you to have a team without Chet Holmgren, without Isaiah Hartenstein, and you're still finding a way, no matter what. But also, I really want to say this, too, because they've been doing that. They've been doing that since Chet went down. But really, truly, shout out to the Dallas Mavericks, Wes, because, again, no Luka Doncic. And they take on the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, albeit they didn't have Chet and they didn't have Isaiah Hartenstein. And they were still able to get this victory. And Kyrie Irving had a great year all year, 23 points for him. Looks great. But, I don't know if you want to open up to it. He's been in and out of the lineup for a lot of games this year. But, Wes, we saw literally, in terms of for a role player, a masterclass performance from a role player.
PJ Washington?
Yes.
27 points, man. I mean, he was terrific. 27 points, 17 rebounds. I didn't even it kind of felt like 17 rebounds in this game, too. Like, there's big rebound games, and then there's other ones. He didn't have, like, one of those possessions where he got, like, 3 rebounds on one possession. But, yeah, I mean, he was great. I do want to just get to Nick Engstadt for more because he went off on PJ Washington in a good way.
Him Thor, because PJ Washington is the god of thunder. 27 points, 17 rebounds in a game for PJ Washington. When Luka Doncic didn't play, the Mavs get the win against the Thunder. And yes, the Thunder have no centers, no bigs. The Mavs bigs were able to make a big impact, but PJ Washington was absolutely massive, playing some great defense on SGA late in this game, getting buckets. They went to him the very first play of the game. It was a post up for PJ against Aaron Wiggins, and that was the design, is to get PJ going, to get him some opportunities, and 10 out of 10 on the free throw line for PJ Washington. A massive, massive game for him. He went back all the way to the playoffs where he said, hey, I shoot really well in this building in OKC, and he brought that all the way back to this game in the regular season. Excellent game for him. Kyrie Irving with some really crafty plays and moves in this game. 23 points for him. The Mavs actually got some bench production attacking the rim over and over again. Mavs best win of the season without Luka.
My takeaway from that swipe is that Nick just has a Thor hammer.
Yeah. Right. Probably got that after the series too.
That's I'm done with that game. No more credit to the Mavericks. I did think it was interesting that Oklahoma City got Dallas to play small for down the stretch of this game, and that they have done that. This is their first loss since Chet Holmgren went down.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, yeah, outside the Chet game, obviously with the
Right.
Warriors. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so pretty incredible. All right, so speaking of incredible, unlikely hero stepping up to save the Cleveland Cavaliers from the brink of losing one game. We're going to talk about that and a lot more as we continue along with Locked On NBA Game Night. Today's episode of Locked On NBA Game Night is brought to you by BetterHelp. Look, sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off our chest. Big or small, certain things can really start to get to you. It's important to let that out, especially to somebody who's unbiased in your life. Maybe you're having trouble moving up at work, or you've run into a wall in a relationship. Maybe you're anxious or you're sad and you just don't know why. Therapy can be different for everybody. Most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports teams, and it's important to get things off your chest every once in a while. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible, and it's suited to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night in 30 minutes. The best way to support the show is to subscribe on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. Let's go to Cleveland, Swipa, where the Cavs beat the Hornets 128-114 to improve to 15-0. An impressive win, considering no Donovan Mitchell. No Donovan Mitchell. He was got the day off for rest reasons, but Mitchell's absence and a terrible uniform, a City Edition uniform by the Cavaliers, not enough to stop them. Not enough to hand them their first loss, because Ty Jerome stepped up 24 points and 8 assists starting at point guard, or starting in the backcourt rather, in Mitchell's place. So I love how deep this Cavaliers team is, and I feel like that's the thing that we don't talk about enough when we're considering Cleveland's sort of realness as a contender. This team is deep, and guys like Ty Jerome is a reason why.
Yeah, Ty Jerome, Karis LeVert, George Niang, Dean Wade, they all have roles on this team, and it makes a big difference for them over the course of a year. But really, I want to shout out their best player this year. It's Donovan Mitchell, but actually for me, the most important player has been Darius Garland. If you haven't been paying attention to Darius this year, he is shooting the lights out. His playmaking's been incredible. He's everything the Miami Heat have been trying to get their paws on for the last several years, and they've never been able to do it. Darius Garland, 30 minutes played, 25 points, 12 assists, and I'm talking about one of the nastiest hezzies you've seen at the top of the key. I'm talking about, get up in the air, Grant, down to the rim, for the lay, off the ring. Oh, man, I'm talking about Darius Garland has been such a good playmaker, dribbler, finisher. His action that he had with Evan Mobley, with Jared Allen, it all works, man, and they look like a team. And I talked about this with Hayes not just too long ago, but when you get a chance to really build in a culture, Kenny Atkinson deserves huge credit for this. When you get the chance to set a culture in the offseason, and everybody has a job, and everybody buys into that job, everybody does what they're supposed to do, this is what you get. 15-0, never would have expected that. I didn't even think they were going to be, like I said, a solidified top 4 seed. But right now, the way the Eastern Conference is working, they're guaranteed to be a top 2 seed in the conference. And
Yes.
They might get 3 All-Stars from this team. They're that good. They might get 3 All-Stars from this team. So for them to be this good, this dominant, and the game got close. The score, I don't think actually painted the story of how close the game actually was.
Yeah, and Evan Mobley getting a huge block on Brandon Miller at the end there. I love the confidence that Evan Mobley is playing with, and I'm assuming he's your third All-Star that you're talking about. Maybe Ty Jerome, I don't know. Also, just don't
respect Jared Allen.
Where was the side? Why had side swipe on Miami? You were.
What's side swipe? I was just saying, y'all been looking for a Darius Garland.
I know, but I
get
the Heat praise earlier, and now you bring me in. To
I'm
push
just
me
pointing out that's the kind of guy that y'all like in Miami. That's all I'm saying.
He would be very welcome in Miami. He'd be better than Terry Rozier, who had another stinker today against Indiana. But sticking with the Cavaliers, I love the confidence Evan Mobley is playing with. Like, he got that big block and then flexes afterwards. And, like, look, Evan Mobley's not the biggest dude. He's a little bit of kind of that string-bring body type. Still young, whatever. But I love when these guys are like kind of feeling themselves and acting strong out there and playing strong. And Evan Mobley certainly is on both ends of the court, for what it's worth. He was a plus 20 in 34 minutes tonight. That's awesome, man. Like, he dominated on both ends of the court. The Cavaliers are so they're top heavy and they're deep at the same time. Look, I don't think, just look at their talent, right? And I think we get this gets glossed over because of the fit issues that were there for the last couple of years. And Kenny Atkinson has walked in and just like, hey, you know what fixes fit issues? Driving, kicking, ball movement, all that stuff. Then it doesn't really matter who's passing to who because we're all generating good looks for each other. Darius Garland, his catch and shoot numbers off the charts right now this season. So they've got, like you said, 3 All-Stars.
Yeah.
Who else is rivaling that talent in the Eastern Conference that's healthy? Boston, period.
Yeah,
That's
Boston.
It.
Yeah.
And then their depth is right there with like the deepest teams in the league. You got Karis LeVert coming off the bench. Dean Wade's been good for them. Niang. Guys like Ty Jerome just kind of jumping in. We saw Jalen Tyson today. Craig Porter Jr. I kind of like him. He was good for them last year too. So they've just got a lot of guys that they can go to, and they are for real, man. I don't. Like, you try to find a reason why, like, the Cavaliers, you try to poke a hole in the resume and say, this is the reason why they're not a contender. You can't do it. You can't find it. Defense, awesome. Enough shooting? Yep, no problem. Talent? Yes. Depth? Yes. MVP caliber type of player in Donovan Mitchell? Absolutely. Like, they have everything you need. So, I'm ready. Well coached now. So,
yeah. It's also, they had 20 turnovers today, so they were very sloppy with the ball. But it's really hard to beat a team, Wes, that shoots 43% from 3, only 30 attempts today. But they shoot 96% from line on 27 of 28. You get that kind of efficiency from this kind of team, it's going to be really, really difficult to beat them on any given night. And I did not expect their offense to be this good, but they have legitimately been one of the best offensive teams in the league.
Let's go to Memphis where the Grizzlies beat the Nuggets 105-90. Here's Joe Mullinex from Locked On Grizzlies with more.
Taylor Jenkins just tied Lionel Hollins for the winningest Memphis Grizzlies coach in the history of the franchise. Maybe we all, myself included, should give a little bit more grace to Coach Jenkins. I'm Joe Mullinax of Locked On Grizzlies, and I've been as critical as anyone of Taylor Jenkins the last couple of days. His rotations confound me. Not starting Vince Williams Jr. or Zach Edey continues to confuse me at least, but the Memphis Grizzlies came out and found a way to win on Sunday against the Denver Nuggets without Nikola Jokic and Aaron Gordon. That context matters. But of course, Ja Morant's still out for Memphis. Marcus Smart also missed the Nuggets game on Sunday night. It's the development of players like Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. It's the depth that this Grizzlies team employs. The fact that we can have conversations about starters and make legitimate arguments for numerous players on this roster is a testament, not just to Coach Jenkins, but to this front office, this coaching staff. They've done good work, and it resulted in a win on Sunday.
So I'm glad I'm not the only one on Vince Williams Jr. Island. He should be starting, and he should be playing 40 minutes a night. So I'm glad Joe agrees with me on that. But he is coming back from an injury relatively recently. Yeah. Fair for me to say that this was a weird game, Swipa?
Look, I think this is more on the Nuggets than anything. They came out sluggish. They came out like they didn't believe in this game at all. And even without Jokic and Gordon, there's a way for you to show up and play. And Wes, I don't know if you've been paying attention at all, but Jamal Murray, 6 of 16 versus the injured Pelicans the other night, 5 of 16 tonight. That's just not good enough.
Range. Yeah,
you can't. That's not good enough. 6 turnovers, 7 assists for him. It's not good enough. You can't do that when your second best player, your second highest paid player is doing that. Michael Porter Jr. has been really good most of the year. Struggled tonight. Julian Strawther scored well off the bench. I don't really have, they just didn't play together. And the Memphis just looked like a team that cared about what was happening. They cared about the process of playing basketball tonight. And they did all the things they were supposed to do. From Jaren Jackson Jr. to Desmond Bane, even Scottie Pippen Jr. played really tenacious defense. They played very physical tonight, and the Nuggets didn't adjust to it. And so they deserve to get their heads kicked in tonight because they played like it, for sure.
Again, like, no Nikola Jokic. You need to know if anybody needs more reasons why Jokic is so important and is probably still the league leader for MVP right now. You could just look at this game that he didn't play. Dario Saric had to play 32 minutes. He's been out of the rotation. That's sort of what we're dealing with in Denver right now. But just you're absolutely right though. There's still no you could still lose the game, but you got to show
Right.
some effort. You got to show
No
something.
problem. No problem with a loss.
Right.
The Heat, but again, this is why I always give people full credit.
Bringing it
There's
back
no
in.
problem with the loss. There's no problem with the loss. It's the way you lose. It's the way you lose that matters. You have to be able to perform and show out and play, and you got to fight. As simple as that. Now, again, I'm not discrediting Michael Malone's been great this year. He really has. But there are just certain things that this team is lacking early season. Again, this ain't playoffs. This ain't May when it matters. But even now, early season, you want to see certain things.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned the Heat. They did fight until the end in their loss. We'll get to that and the rest of the games as we wrap up NBA Game Night after this. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything that you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Or if you're like me and your Miami Dolphins won their second straight game, you can log onto the FanDuel app and be like, maybe I should start making money on my home team winning
Maybe
games.
Tyreek Hill
Look
will
at
get
that.
5 catches in a game now for the rest of the year. Goodness
Sounds
gracious.
like somebody has him on his fantasy team. They're 7.5-point favorites over New England next weekend. I'm just saying. I think we're not dead yet.
Where's the
Old
game?
Monty Python. We're not dead yet.
Is it in Miami?
I believe it's in Miami. But
I'm taking that. Yeah, I'm taking that every time.
You can take it at FanDuel.com. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We'll be right back. Best way to support Locked On NBA Game Night is to subscribe on YouTube. Every game, every night in 30 minutes. We're going to play our final games, or we're going to get to our final games of the night. For these 5 games, Swiper, we're going to play a game called Call Your Own, where you're going to tell me to play on or blow the whistle, blowing the whistle when you have an opinion or something to add to the final score as we wrap things up here. We're going to start in Indiana, where the Pacers beat the Heat 119-110. Here is Locked On Pacers' Tony East with a little bit more on the game.
Tony East here with Locked On Pacers. Last one on the floor here where the Pacers beat the Heat tonight, 119-110. Big bounce back for the Pacers, who had the worst way to lose in the NBA on Friday. An effort loss. The whole starting lineup gets benched for effort in the third quarter. They come out tonight, look great. The Jimmy Butler-less Heat, their foe in this one, and Tyrese Halliburton, 13 assists, no turnovers. Miles Turner, 34 points, a season high on effective shooting. Pascal Siakam goes 9 for 11, and Benedict Mathurin, the quietest 21 points, 12 rebounds game you'll ever see. The key for this one for the Pacers was a response. All of their starters, their healthy starters, playing connected, playing well, playing together. That's been very rare for the Pacers this season. They've gotten wins where Turner goes crazy, where Halliburton looks very good, Siakam's been steady all year, or Mathurin has 38, for example. Very rarely do they get a steady dose of everyone throughout the night. That's what happened today. They defended better. They stopped the Heat from their crazy run in the fourth quarter. Much more on Locked On Pacers from a much-needed Pacers win.
Well, Tony gave you the Pacers point of view. I'll give you the Miami Heat point of view after I recorded Locked On Heat. Unlike those Denver Nuggets, I thought they did show a lot of fight in the end. They end up leaving Indiana. It was that baseball series, but both games played in Indiana. They split that series. I think long 6-game trip. They're very tired, very clearly at the end of this thing. But Tyler Hero just steps up in the fourth quarter, hits like 3 triples in the first 5 minutes. He's been awesome this season. I would go so far as to say he's been the best 3-point shooter in the league this year, and the numbers back that up too. His transformation as sort of this catch-and-shoot volume 3-point shooter and kind of going away from like Drew Hanlon basketball, like dribbling into long twos and stuff, has been a revelation for Miami. Even when everybody else on that offense can't really hit a shot, Tyler Hero's been sort of the only bright spot going here. But I'll leave it up to you. Play on, blow the whistle. You got something to add?
Yeah, Duncan Robinson trade value has never been higher.
There you go. Keep an eye on that. Who can use him?
A movement shooter with some playmaking skills. A lot of people.
I think so too. Let's go to the next game here. Portland beats Atlanta Hawks 114-108. Shaedon Sharpe, 32 points, made 7 of his 12 3-pointers. The Hawks turned it over 25 times. So I have to play on or blow the whistle.
Play on. Dyson Daniels is a madman.
I love Dyson Daniels. He's my favorite player to watch. You know who's not my favorite player to watch, though? Trae Young. I kind of miss this team playing without Trae Young. Am I crazy for saying I don't know if they're better, but I know they're way more fun to watch?
I mean, I think you're tripping a little bit. I mean, Trey had 29 and 8 tonight, and he shot very well across the board. It's just, it's a functionally different kind of team, but they need Trey Young to unlock Jalen Johnson, to unlock Dyson Daniels, especially Zach Richeche. They're going to need
Johnson
him.
had a triple-double without Trey Young the other night.
Yeah, I mean, okay, one single game sample size, Bam Adebayo, you know what I mean, might be the best center in the league, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, sometimes. The Pistons beat the Wizards 124-104. Here's Khalil from Locked On Pistons with more.
Pistons get a big-time win versus the Washington Wizards. Host of Locked On Pistons podcast, Khalil here. The Detroit Pistons now find themselves just one game away from being at 500. They're currently at 7-8. And as I'm recording this, there's only 3 teams in the East that have more wins than your Detroit Pistons. This is a team who did not reach win number 7 until game 50 last year. They are a much better team this year. They're playing much better as a team. JB Bickerstaff has been absolutely tremendous. Somehow this team is 8th in defensive rating. I don't know how. They don't have a lot of defensive talent, but JB has them absolutely competing, completely getting the most out of Cade Cunningham defensively. Cade with another triple-double, 4 triple-doubles on the year. I believe 4th in the NBA in total triple-doubles. Jaden Ivey with another great game, 28 points. This young backcourt's looking tremendous. This team is looking really good. They're currently, again, as I'm recording this, 4th in the Eastern Conference. I don't think anyone could have been imagining that. The Detroit Pistons are playing good basketball, man.
Koo seems hyped. Are you hyped, Swipa?
Yes, I am a Cade Cunningham man. So I think he's a really good player. I think he's been in a dumpster fire situation. I just love the fact that we're 15 games to the year, and the Detroit Pistons have a better record than a few teams in the Eastern Conference. No, they don't. But what was funny is Detroit's been hooping, and I laughed. JB Bickerstaff, he's before the year started, no headbands, all this other stuff, put these old school rules in. Now, I don't think it's going to work all year, but it's working right now. They're playing like a unit. Cade's taking a step in this game overall. I'm actually really curious to see kind of how the rest of the season ends up with them. And I just really like that they're building a culture. And again, that's so much of what basketball is. Even if you don't have the most talent, do you have a good culture? You can win basketball games.
Bickerstaff is doing a phenomenal job with this team so far. And if you tell me coaching does not matter, I will point to the test case of Jaden Ivey, right? Unplayable last year for one reason or another, but Monty Williams decided that he was unplayable last year. Looked like a bust, a borderline bust, and his career was going the wrong way. Monty Williams out, JB Bickerstaff in, Jaden Ivey, 28 points tonight on 10 of 19 shooting. He's handling the ball more, taking pressure off of Cade Cunningham. I love that. Yeah. I love that for both of them. Jaden Ivey, when he's out there, everything just moves faster. He's going downhill. It's all that stuff that we saw that we liked when he was coming out of the draft. I was a big Jaden Ivey guy coming out of the draft.
Bro, if I told you the starting 5 for the Detroit Pistons was going to be a plus 18, plus 29, plus 30, plus 24, plus 22, you would have thought that the other team sat all of its players.
Yeah. Malik Beasley, big game for him. Mm-hmm. Big game. I mean, it was the Washington Wizards, so they're basically whatever team, They basically sit all of their players anyway. That's how they are. That's just kind of the way that they constructed their team. That said, to Koo's point, the Pistons were also that team last year, and they're no longer that team this year. And this is probably my league pass MVP right now is the Detroit Pistons. I love watching them play. There's just a lot of guys. I like Ron Holland. I know he had a rough night a couple nights ago, missing those 2 free throws at the end, but I love watching him play defense. Isaiah Stewart's always a good time. I've always been a big Jalen Durant. There's just a lot of guys on this roster who I'm like, oh, I like this guy. Coming out of the draft, I'm like, that's my guy in the draft. And they just kind of ended up with all of them. So they've been a lot of fun. Last game here. Oh, no, we got 2 more games. Rockets beat the Bulls 143-107, a blowout in Chicago. 7 Rockets scored in double figures, led by Fred VanVleet with 28 points. Alperen Sengun, a triple-double with 20, 11, and 11. Swipe a play on or blow the whistle.
Yeah, play on. Alperen Sengun, back-to-back triple-doubles.
He's awesome. The Knicks beat the Nets 114-104. 4 different Knicks. This is a great stat. 4 different Knicks scored at least 20 points. And one of them was not Jalen Brunson. Weird game in New York. Play on a blow.
Yeah. The Nets push you to a weird place. So again, really shout out. And again, this goes back to a couple years ago. Shout out getting Josh Hart on the cheap because he's been excellent. Playoff, regular season, and you get a 28-8 performance from Josh Hart tonight. Just amazing.
28 and 8. How many rebounds did he have? Oh, 8.
8 rebounds.
That's what you said.
Yeah.
28 and 8. 8 rebounds. That's how that works.
Mhm.
Big game for Karl Anthony Towns also. 26 points, 15 rebounds, 6 assists. Did take a scary spill there in the second half. Managed to play through it and everything, but that'll be probably something to monitor. I don't know if it was his hip or his leg, but it didn't look. It looked like he could have hyperextended something. So maybe just something to monitor there. But a big Mikal Bridges revenge game, kind of. 9 of 18, 21 points. I don't know how much of a revenge game it could be.
Well, they were putting Cam Thomas above Mikal Bridges just the other day because of how he looked making shots, shots. People are crazy. Shout out Mikal Bridges. He can help them win playoff series this year.
That'll do it for us at Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night in 30 minutes. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.